show where I try to educate real stories.
Welcome to Truth and Justice with Vivian King. I'm delighted to have the guest in the studio, Miss Rosiland Simmons, who's going to talk to us about the homeless. I also have my trusted co-host, Mr. Danny Sneed, who is going to help with commentary and to add his 2 cents, as he always does. But before we get started, I would like for you, when we put this on YouTube, to like the video. And remember, these shows are on my YouTube channel, Vivian R. King. And I have probably 250 shows maybe on there, and about every topic that is in the criminal justice system. But tonight, our topic is the homeless. And Miss Rosiland is here to share her story and how she redeemed herself and is helping people that were in the similar situation she was in, being homeless. So Miss Rosiland, tell us who you are, how you got to be homeless, and welcome to our show.
Thank you. I'm Rosiland Simmons, originally from Chicago, Illinois. Moved here 2 years ago, and one of the best things that happened to me was to move to Houston, so I love it here.
Oh, really? You got out of that cold, huh?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Lord. So, yeah. How did I come to be homeless? Interesting story. I worked as a hospital chaplain in Detroit. So I worked in the healthcare, working a lot of times with homeless and dealing with a lot of trauma. And 6 years into the job, absolutely loved the job. Thought I was going to retire as a chaplain. Never wanted to do anything else once I became a chaplain. And the hospital got bought out. Lo and behold, they decided that my department was not necessary. So everyone in our department got laid off. But I was not bothered because I had just gotten nationally board certified. So I'm like, I'm going to get a better job. I'm going to make more money. That's not exactly what happened. So it was weird. So I moved back to Chicago, obviously, left my apartment and everything. Did a lot of interviewing, and interviewed well, but never received an offer. So for a long time, I didn't look for anything else. Then I finally said, okay, you just need a job. So then I applied for all kinds of jobs. I had background in administration. I worked at AT&T in management for years. Could not find a job anywhere. Ran out of unemployment. So a year and a half later, I was just devastated. And I came to realize that being homeless is extremely traumatic. Extremely traumatic. Whether you're street homeless or whether you're couch surfing, either way. If you're homeless, you have no income. Whoever even if people are nice and let you stay there, that's going to run out when you run out of money. Right. And then you start thinking about yourself. You're a grown woman and you can't take care of yourself. That does a lot to you. Particularly in my situation, you figure, I did the right thing. I went to college. I have a degree. Matter of fact, I have 2 degrees. And I was just dumbfounded. And sometimes people look at you like, it can't be that hard. You just don't want to work. And people may think that you're lazy. The easy thing to do is to get a job. It's hard having no money. But anyway, couldn't find a job, and after a while I just became distraught and couldn't get out the house. Just couldn't hardly get out the bed. Just.
Where were you able to live during that time?
I ended up living in an enclosed back porch with no heat in Chicago.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now, was that a friend's place or just
family
empty?
member? It was a family member. It was turned into a bedroom kinda, but it was not insulated.
Wow.
Yeah. And I couldn't go buy a heater because I couldn't run up the bill because I couldn't pay the bill.
Right.
No heat.
Wow.
It was, yeah.
How long did you have to live like that?
About 3 years,
Oh my God.
2.5 years.
But the people that was inside with the heat, I even let my dog come inside.
Oh, I could go inside. I could go inside, but they didn't have a lot of heat either because, their bill was just really high and it wasn't manageable. So they didn't have a lot of heat either. But it was just,
I mean, like when it was cold, could you at least go inside and sleep inside on the floor under blankets or something?
I could have. I could have. And actually, I had an option. I could have, there was another space I could have chosen, but where I was, I mean, it wasn't as bad as it sounds. I had blankets and stuff, and I had a TV and I had cable so I could watch T.D. Jakes and Bill Winston, because if it hadn't been for those two, yeah, I'd probably still be homeless.
But I know how cold it is in Chicago. My brother lives in Chicago.
No,
And it's off the
cold.
chain cold in Chicago.
No, it's cold here. If it get cold,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
it's cold. It's 50 degrees to me.
I mean, there was heat in the house, but what I'm saying is that particular space where I was,
Right.
my bedroom was not heated. So, but I was grateful not to be on the street. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it was tough. Your mind plays tricks on you. You know what I'm saying? And you start thinking, what's wrong with you? You got a degree and people look at you like.
Now, was
it
there an option to try to work at Target or just a store?
honey, let me tell you. This was not a pride issue. This was not an issue, well, I'm only going to take this kind of job. No. I went to the mall and was going to work for $6, $7, $8 or whatever they paid. And had a little interview, kind of an interview, and they said, well, orientation on such and such a day. So I'm thinking, okay, at least I'm going to have something. Yeah. I never got a call about where orientation was going to be, what time, so I kept trying to call them. They wouldn't even take my calls. I personally, in hindsight, believe it was not anything I did. I think that I was on assignment. And what do I mean by that? I mean that was my process. I had to go through it so that I could get to the place I am now where I can help the homeless. Sometimes you can tell people, it's one thing to tell people, don't do this, don't do that, or here's how you manage your money. It's something else when you've been through it, because they'll listen to you from a whole different perspective. They know that you're not judging them, you're not talking down to them, because what? You used to be them.
Right.
And so I think that I had to go through that so that I could help people from a different perspective.
So tell me how you got yourself out of that situation.
Oh, it was only the grace of God. I was at my son's house. My son lived in the south suburbs. And we were talking, and the Holy Spirit just began to give me instruction, like, I'm telling you could get a car. I'm going, I don't have no money, how am I going to get a car? Long story short, I started looking for cars on my phone. And imagine being homeless and you say, now God, you know how I am. If I get a car, this is going to sound so bougie, but anyway, I only like convertibles.
Oh my
If it's
God,
not convertible,
it is bougie.
It is. If it's not convertible, I'm not interested because I'm not paying for what I don't want. Once I drove a convertible, I never went back. That was like 20-something years ago. But anyway, I ended up with a convertible. I found the car, went to the dealership, and of course, they see a woman, so they try to play games with you. But they didn't know my dad was a used car salesman, and so he had taught me some things. I said, okay, no problem, I left. The next day, they came and got me, and I left the dealership with my car.
But how do you do that homeless without a job?
I had income.
And what was that?
Social Security.
Okay.
So I was a widow. And so once I reached the age of I could get my husband's Social Security. And so based on that.
Now, what did you get your husband's Social Security when you were still living on this enclosed porch?
No.
So
That's how I left.
That's how you left. Okay.
That's how
So
I
once
left.
you got eligible for your husband's Social Security, you had a little money to where you could get an apartment.
Yep.
And a house and a car.
Had enough, yeah.
Okay.
But not
And you
anything
skipped that
elaborate.
part of the story.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
You left us on enclosed back porch.
Yeah,
And then you
this-
went to a car dealership. So we're trying to figure out how you get there.
On the phone.
On the phone. On the phone.
I found
from
it.
homeless. So we're like, how did you just jump there?
No, not a car, a convertible.
A convertible
Because that's
car.
all I drive.
Wait.
Which is
Okay.
still what she drives.
Look,
That's what she drove up there.
pre-owned.
No, I mean, it was an older model, but I have an older model car too. I think mine's it's not a convertible, it's 2012.
Whatever. But at any rate, yeah. So long story short, I was praying and been asking God for help. And what do I do? Because everything I tried, nothing was working. And, asking God to lead and guide me. And then just, you hear a still small voice and follow through. And yeah, so I got the car. 2 days later, again, found this still small voice. Get up and get dressed. It's time for you to find someplace, drive where you want to live. I drove to this neighborhood, and I'm like, okay, now what? I don't see any for rent signs. I'm just driving.
Is it still in Chicago?
It's still in Chicago. So I get out the car because I saw this realty company. So I got out to write down the phone number so I can call the realty company. So the guy comes out the door, and I said, hey, do you know if there's any openings in this building? He says, yeah, my dad owns the building, and gives me his card.
Wow.
I call his dad. Long story short, his dad says, they're working on the apartment right now. If you go back, tell them I said to let you in so you can view the apartment. Viewed the apartment. I called him back, and I said, this could work depending on how much you charge. Long story short, we never even met face to face, and he decided to give me the apartment.
Give it to you for how much?
Like $750 a month.
Something you can afford.
Something I could afford.
Wow.
So he gave it to him, gave me the apartment, and I had been looking for furniture for a year online. No money, by faith, because I was going to move with a sheet and a pillow and one blanket. I didn't care as long as it was going to be heated and it was going to be mine. So that's all that mattered. But anyway, I'd been looking for this furniture. Went to the furniture store that day, and they asked me for my social security number, and I'm like, no, ma'am, I don't have credit, and I wouldn't give her, and I kept being obstinate. Finally gave her my social security number, and she said, ma'am, you can have anything in this store you want, up to $8,000.
What?
So I left the store with 3 rooms of new furniture. So God gave me a car, an apartment, and 3 rooms of furniture in the same month.
Wow.
With no job, and the only income I had was Social Security.
Wow. So
But I learned a lot of lessons prior to that, in terms of, what changed my whole mindset about money management and my relationship with money came from a day when I bought a Chinese food lunch, and that Chinese food lunch changed my whole life.
And how was that?
I had been looking for jobs and, applying online for everything, and just believing that some kind of way I was going to find a job. Anyway, I had $10, and I decided that, you know what, you have struggled long enough. You need to do something for yourself. So I love Chinese food, so I went and had a Chinese food lunch. And I said, it's going to be a good day. I was excited. The food was wonderful. Went to bed. The next day, I get a phone call that there's a job fair at Chicago State University. They're hiring on the spot. So I'm excited because I've got resumes, I got references, I got clothes. I'm like, yes, my ship just came in.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm all excited. I'm getting dressed. And all of a sudden, I have a realization that I'm not going to make it to the job fair. Because out of this $10, I spent $7.99 for my lunch, which meant I had $2 left. Mm-hmm. Is that bus fare to get to and from this? No, it's not. And by the time I got the shower, my aunt was gone. There was nobody in the house. There was nobody I could call and borrow money from. So, yeah, my ship came and left. And I had a talk with myself and sit back and say, you can't blame nobody but you. Because had this been yesterday, yeah.
In your Chinese lunch.
In my Chinese lunch. And so that cost me another year of homelessness.
Whoa, because you couldn't make it to that job fair.
But here's how it changed my life.
But you had a car. So you
I
didn't
didn't.
have gas?
I didn't have no car then.
Oh, you didn't have a car then?
I
Okay,
had no car. I had no furniture. I had nothing.
Oh, that's when you were still in the...
I was still
in
homeless.
clothes. Okay. In the clothes room.
But that day changed my life because I realized I couldn't blame anybody but me because I had the money the day before. And so, yeah. So what was the lesson I learned? It's, I asked people, so in my class I would say, so I spent this $8, was that too much to spend? Did I overspend? And they would say, no, it was only $8, that's true, but I didn't have to spend. Mm. So the lesson was, it's not how much you spend.
It's what you spend it on.
It's the impact of your spending.
Yeah, that's true, the impact of your spending.
What's it going to cost you tomorrow? Mm-hmm. It cost me my tomorrow. It cost more than I ever wanted to pay.
Right.
So it's not how much you spend, it's the impact.
That's a good point.
So if you have $30 and your phone bill is $30 and you go to Wendy's and buy a biggie bag for $5, now you got $25. So now you don't have enough to pay your phone bill, right? Mm-hmm. You've applied for all these jobs And one company decides that they're going to call and see if you can come in for a final interview. But they can't reach you because your phone is off. Another job decided that the hiring manager decided she chose you. So they're going to offer you a job, but your phone is off.
All right.
So the $5 you spent was too much.
Oh, that's a good scenario.
Yeah, that's
I like that.
And so this is what I mean about the difference between, the financial literacy class that I teach is for people at this level.
Right.
It's dealing with the everyday issues that they're dealing with. It's not something from a textbook from somebody who's making $50,000 or $60,000 who's trying to find a way to buy a bigger house.
Right.
This
So the
is
effect of your decisions, the cause and effects type situation.
so it helps you to understand the value of money. Because if I ask the average person, how important is money to you on a scale of 1 to 10? How important is money to you? You're going to say what? 10 or 9, right? Most people say 9 or 10. Money is that important to me. But if money is that important to us, how does it so easily leave our hands?
Right.
Well, the good thing about it is what I'm hearing is that information not just for homeless people.
That's
I know some
true. That's
people with
true.
6 figures
Absolutely.
a year could use that information
Absolutely.
or that logic toward the way they look at their money. You agree?
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
I've helped other
Absolutely.
people who are doing quite well.
And I've helped when I used to have clients that said I stole or I robbed because I needed $50 to feed my family at McDonald's. Well, I'm like, do you know how much McDonald's costs compared to a 5-pound bag of beans and a 5-pound bag of rice, which you can make stretch for a month? You can put ketchup on it one day. I mean, that's the way we ate back in those days. We had, it don't cost nothing hardly to buy a bag of beans. A bag of beans, I mean, you could feed your family for $10 with beans and rice. You know that. And so I used to tell them, that's feeding your family. McDonald's is not feeding your family.
That's right.
And, the food might not even be that healthy. But if you get beans and rice, I mean, that has helped people for generations. I mean, countries live off of that. So, but let me tell you this. There's a generation, and you're part of it, Danny, that didn't understand that. I know when I used to have clients, I used to tell them that I had people that actually told me they robbed to feed their family so they could go to McDonald's for $50. Well, for one night, when that $50 could last them a whole month.
Absolutely.
If you know how to make it stretch.
Absolutely.
If you know how to make it stretch. And how hard is it to boil a bag of beans and put a little meat in it? Nothing.
I remember having $1 and wanting to go buy a hamburger, and I couldn't justify it because I could get 3 pounds of chicken wings for the same dollar.
Right.
But I'm at that age group.
Well, we're at that age group. Yeah,
So-
if you get 3 pounds of chicken wings, you can make that last you for
Exactly.
3 weeks. You know what I'm saying?
So $1
with
for
some
hamburger?
rice, you're
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
Yeah, because rice is cheap. So
Make a
it's
pot of
like
spaghetti?
It's like yep. So you can make it taste a different way. You might can get your little ground meat to throw in there too. So so it's what we prioritize our money for. But I must say that Danny, you're a good money manager too, because Danny has, compared to his contemporaries in his generation, getting out of prison with a lot of debt and a lot of wants. I have watched this man over the last 5 or 6 years master much of it, and I'm very proud of you for it, because you're one of the few people I know who've done that.
It's good.
He will make the sacrifices, just like you did, in his own way, to pay off his debts, child support, pay off his IRS.
Yeah.
He owed $60,000 in child support, being in prison 15 years, but he paid it all
And they
off.
still make you pay it. They didn't care about you.
With
being
plus
in the-
interest. Plus interest.
But I had a 75 cents to the quarter ratio of saving when I got out, because my rent was only $50 a month. And so when I got my check, I would save 75 cents out of $1.
Wow.
Wow.
I wouldn't put it in the bank because the bank, I was so much in arrears. So I kept it in the mattress.
Take all your money.
And people were like, well, how can you do that? Well, because I have low overhead. And
How
I
did you
have,
live for $50 a month?
because when I got out with the homeless program for veterans, they set your rent based on your income. So
You're living in a veteran's
30%. You pay
right,
30%.
right.
You pay
So
30%.
if your income is zero, your income, the base rate is $50.
I see.
And then it goes up as you make more money. And so
Good for you.
and so what I realized is, because I had been in the real world and know what real rent was, I understood the fact that I wasn't paying electric, I wasn't paying water, So that was like them giving me money, but me not having to spend it.
Right.
So when I got my check, I rationalized that this is not free money. This
Right.
is giving me an opportunity to save. And I saved and saved and saved. And one day Chase sent me something in the mail that says, we'll give you $100 if you open up an account with us. Just a check and a savings account. So I said, ooh, that's a free $100. And I began the journey getting an account only because they offered me $100.
But you weren't worried then about child support snatching your money?
They did eventually. Like 6 years later, I had like $1,500 in the bank, and I went to the grocery store. I had about $8 purchase, and my debit card declined. It kept declining. So I had to take the walk of shame, leave my little old groceries there.
Yeah, that
That
is.
is a walk of shame. That's a walk of shame.
And I went to Chase, and I went in. I controlled my anger, and I was like, it's just a mistake. And I got there, and they said, you need to go talk to that guy over there in that little cubicle. And when I went over there, and I'm going to keep this short, he said, Mr. Sneed, there's only 2 people that can tell us you can't get to your money.
The IRS,
And-
child support.
And he said, both of them.
Both of them after you. Both of them on your butt.
He said, they put a freeze on your account. It froze your account. You know what I'm saying? I said, but I'm paying them every month. So even though I was paying them every month,
They still garnished your wages.
they got in their feelings because they saw I had $15 in my account. Like, no.
You can't. No, we want you to be broke.
You got to be broke. You paying us, but you can't be, you trying to ball on us. So I called, and I'm not embellishing this. I started crying on the phone.
To which agency? The IRS?
Child support.
The child support.
I say, y'all took all my money. I still got to live out here. I said, I'm paying y'all. I was traumatized.
I know you
I
were.
bet you were.
But I couldn't, I'm still on parole. And I'm out of Montreal. I really can't go off.
Right.
Or you want to.
And it's the records of my past. I built this situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm distraught. And she said, okay, we're going to give you 700 of it back. So they gave me 700 of it back, and they kept the rest. And I went back to the shoebox and mattress.
I know that's right. But I don't understand why if you're on a payment plan and you're paying it, they would just snatch your money like that. I don't understand that.
It's
I thought that as
probably
long as you had an
I
agreement.
think it's an algorithm in the system that when you owe that much money,
Yeah.
the system searches through your social security number and see if you got any money stashed anywhere. And so it kind of did like this series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
You owe us all this money. We're taking all that and applying it to what you owe.
Yeah.
So once she gave you the $700 back,
I went and took it immediately out the bank.
you took it out the bank and closed that account.
Well, I left it there with about $30 to $40, but I never put a lot of money in that account again.
Well, so tell me how you went the journey to pay all that $60,000 in child support back, though.
Well, I started working 2-3 jobs.
Right, I remember that. You were
Had
doing Uber, you were doing this. I remember when you were working 3 jobs.
about 3 different jobs. And each job took money out of my check. So for me to break even, I needed 3 jobs just to have a livable wage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like this
the more
scenario.
you make, the more they take.
It's a Chinese proverb, I think. It said, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
And how do you pay off $60,000 in debt?
One bite
$1
at
at
a
a
time.
time.
Yeah.
And it was about 1.5 years ago, I celebrated being debt free, and I was telling everybody.
Right.
Like I
mean,
wasn't
that's
telling everybody I
amazing
had
thing.
gained something. I was telling everybody that would listen, I'm debt free. I'm debt free.
Praise the Lord. No, Danny's my hero. I mean, and the thing is, I didn't know when you went to prison, they still put that interest on you. He had to pay the interest too, and he done total of 15 years. So they had all that interest.
10 grand.
And he had to pay it all. 10 grand of it was interest.
And I begged my ex-wife to
Take you off the
You know what? My ex-wife could have just said,
Take him.
let him make it
Right.
at any time. She could have said, let him make it.
we
He's
understand.
paid all this. This
Yeah.
10 grand, that's arrears. And I went to her very diplomatically and said, I
did.
really want to move ahead with my life. I paid you every penny that they said I owed you. This 10 grand
just
just
interest.
stayed.
It went to the state?
I mean,
it goes to
just-
her though, doesn't
Well,
it?
I don't. You know what? When
I
I,
don't know
wrote
where
that
the
last
check
check, I had to, and I'm not just spiritualizing it. At some point in my life, I had to focus on something else.
Yeah.
and it couldn't be being bitter,
That's right.
resentful,
That's right. That's
and
right.
looking for someone
That's
to.
right.
Nobody was coming to save me,
Right.
and that was the records of my past. Those were things that I had actually did. It didn't feel good, but I had to be honest and hold myself accountable. I built that house.
Right.
But look at the lesson and look how it's changed you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I mean, when I went through, one of the things that when I got a job, when I got hired, nobody knew this. When I got hired working with the vets, I had been homeless. They didn't know that. I was just coming out of homelessness. And so I started saving 50% of my income for a
See,
long
same-
time, 50%, because I'm
same
like,
scenario.
I ain't never gonna go through this again. I'm never in this life or the next one. No, I will not be broke. Not. So, and so when I wrote my book, one of my coworkers said, how much is your book? Because you must know something about money. Every time I turn around, you taking a vacation, you going somewhere, you doing this. So you must know something. I want your book. And so we all laughed. And somebody went to management to see if they could take my book and use it for the book club for the vets. But they didn't.
For the feds?
For the vets, for the
Oh,
veterans,
vets,
veterans I
vets,
was working
okay,
with.
for the veterans.
They wanted to use that to teach them, but I ended up doing the class instead. So, but yeah.
Are you still working with the veterans?
I know I'm not. I'm not, but I was.
Was that in Chicago? Or
That was in
Houston?
Chicago. That was in Chicago. I haven't. I retired and moved here
So why'd you move to Houston?
because there were 1 million vets here, and my brother is a vet, and I think that's where it all stems from. I have a heart for vets.
Is he still with us? Is he still? Mm-hmm. Is he in Houston?
My son and I moved here. Everybody else is still in Illinois, but my son and I escaped.
Okay.
We escaped the cold and the snow and the ice and all that.
Okay.
But I have a heart for veterans, and they know it. One landlord called me, what did he call me? Like a mother hen, because I will hurt you over my vets. Don't mess over them. You're going to be in trouble.
Right. So tell me more about your journey to literacy, financial literacy, and then your desire for helping people.
Okay. So after I cried and, laid in the bed, couldn't get a job, I couldn't even pray. I was so distraught I couldn't even. Now, that was my go-to. If I have a really bad day, I'm going to pray. I couldn't even pray. But anyway, there was a church on the corner. So I went to the little church on the corner. And I'm telling you, it was bad. They were giving me clothes. I never thought, not me, but yeah, they had to give me clothes. But anyway, I began to pray a lot and just ask God for guidance and stuff. And like I said, so I ended up with the apartment and the car and paid all of my bills on time, had $40 a month left for groceries and gas. Yeah, I can't tell you today how that happened for a whole year. But after that, I took this class. So I met a woman who was an African-American woman. She was a major in the Army. And somebody introduced me to her, and she said, you need to take this class. So by then, I had already left the hospital. I had been a chaplain for a long time. Well, she was a chaplain in the Army. So she talked to somebody and got me into this class. Well, lo and behold, I didn't know the class cost $2,000. But yeah, they paid for it. And I went to the class, and I ended up meeting someone in the class who hired me. And that's how I got my job. And that's when I started saving money, and that's when I wrote the book. It's called Money for Life, Strategies for Creating Wealth. And my goal was to help somebody else because my situation, I felt like, was different. It was great that we have all these programs to help veterans. We have programs to help women with children. We have programs for the elderly. We have programs for young mothers. But if you're just middle-aged and can't find a job, there is nothing for you. There was no YouTube at that time. You couldn't go to the library and say, hey, how do I get out of homelessness? So I cried because I couldn't figure it out. It took me a while. And so I'm like, I want to make it easier for somebody. If nothing else, they can pick up a book and say, oh, here's a starting point. So that was the purpose of the book. Here's a start. It may not be everything you need, but it might be a start. So that was why I wrote the book. And so when I got to working for this organization as a case manager, my goal was to help them get housing. At that point, had nothing to do with finances. But there was a guy who was doing budgets with them, But he just one day decided he turned in his bad and left. And they came to me and said, we want you to take this job. And so after I got the job, I asked them if I could create a class. And they gave me permission to create the class. And then testimonies started coming from the class like crazy. So I shared in the class my story about the Chinese food and how I ended up being homeless another year. So one of the guys in class came to me. He said, Miss Simmons, he said, I pulled up to my favorite restaurant, Noodles and Company. He said, I was getting ready to have lunch. He said, and I remembered your story. He said, I got back in my car and I went to Taco Bell and I put the other $15 in my gas tank. He said, I remembered your story. And so they would begin to share their wins in class. And so the guys would say, oh, that sounds good, I'm gonna try that. And so their lives just started changing. I had one client who, I'll call him Mr. T. I'll call him Mr. T. This client, nice guy, nice guy. And he was trying to get his life on track. And he had been applying for a subsidized housing and doing everything. But he had a ridiculous car note. You hear me? He had an enormous car note. So how are you homeless and have an enormous car note? But he was homeless with an enormous car note. And
Did he work?
He had a part-time job. I don't even know how they financed that.
Did he live in his car?
No, he was, where did he live? He was in a GPD program. You familiar with that?
Right.
I don't know what that is.
The grant per diem, it's kind of like a transitional housing.
It's staging till you get permanent housing.
Yeah.
So that's what US Vets does. So a veteran, he has no income, but he's looking for housing. In this country, has a housing first program.
Right.
Where until we find you permanent housing, we're gonna put you in temporary housing. Now in the GPD program, you're probably gonna have 3 men in one room,
I see.
sharing a room.
Is it 3 beds?
Right, 3
Yeah,
cots,
yeah.
you know, and they have a
Yeah.
bathroom. They don't have no electronics and TVs, but you're just in transition to get home, a house, apartment.
Now the job he said he'd been working that job like 25, 30 years. So he was faithful
Part-time.
part-time.
But they wouldn't give him a full-time job.
I guess where it was, there was no full-time jobs available. But at any rate, he took my class and he told me, and so we talked about his car note, right? And we talked about what are the options. Here's what could happen. Here's what you could do, A, B, or C. But you need to make a decision. You need to do something, right? He did. He got rid of 40% of his debt. He got moved into a subsidized building. He lives on the 21st floor overlooking Lake Michigan. Got rid of the car note, has several $1,000s in the bank, reunited with his wife, and told me he taught her how to manage his money from what he learned in class.
So it's a mindset.
A lot of it is.
So he got rid of that car
He got rid of the car.
and didn't have no car, or he just had a cheaper
So
car?
he has no car. Here's one of the things I tell him. You could take Uber all day long
Right.
and not spend,
And in Chicago, you can take the L.
you could take a lot of things. Because
Right.
when I got here, and I'm like, where's your transportation system? But yeah. Anyway,
don't have one.
No, you don't. So I said, look, you make enough money, you can do Uber. And he smiled. I asked him, I said, do you miss your car? He said, not at all. I said, you won't have tickets to pay, you don't have gas, you don't have insurance, you don't have maintenance, and you don't have this ridiculous car note. And so I said, or you could do this, and so he got rid of the car, and he said, best thing ever happened to him. So he said he never cashed his stimulus checks. He put them directly in the bank. Had several, and I remember when he wanted to, when he was new on my case roll, and I guess I had known him maybe 2 weeks. He was concerned about his mom. His mom is up in age, and he's in Chicago, and his mother's in the South, and he didn't have money to go see her, right? And so I would say, well, save $100. Now,
Go on the bus, yeah.
but you tell somebody homeless to save $100, they're gonna look at you like you got 6 eyeballs. But anyway, not only did he end up, he and his wife flew to the family reunion, and he went to see her twice. He flew twice to see her last year. He called me, I guess, about a month and a half ago to tell me how grateful he was. Now, mind you, and I'm going, that was 5 years ago. You still remember? You know? And his comments made me tear up. He said, Miss Simmons, every time I put my key in the door, I think about you. Every time I pay my rent, I think about you. And so to know that you're able to impact lives like that, you know, and he's not the only one. It's just, and so it just confirms to me it's a matter of information. Everybody that's homeless doesn't need to be homeless. Some people just don't know what to do, just like I didn't know what to do. And I'm determined to get the information to them because they just need information.
Right. Beautiful story. Think of another story. Danny, do you have a story from homelessness that you know of?
Man, I have several.
Okay, well, tell one.
And you remember Melvin Owes, he did an interview on your show. And when I met Melvin, he had just got out of prison from, I won't say what his case was, but he had been down there a long time. And he was coming across the day room, and I didn't know who he was, and he was rushing. And I was like, hey, brother, hold on, slow down.
This is why y'all in prison?
No, he had got out,
Oh, okay.
and I didn't know
But you
his
said the
back.
day room, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, well, the dining hall at where I worked.
Okay.
So I worked with homeless veterans at the time, and he was new on the property, and I hadn't seen him before. And I knew that Gant, he was like he was trying to get somewhere, and that was a flag to me. And so I stopped him and said, where are you going and why are you in such a rush? Man, I just got out of prison, and man, I gotta get, and he was telling me all the things he needed to get done. I gotta get this, I got a family, I gotta do all this. And I gave him my, a little bit of my backstory and how that oftentimes we rush ourselves back into the same situation with the expectation that we gotta get it all done now. And it goes back to when I say you gotta stop and be aware. You can't see the forest because of the trees. Like you're visualizing. I say you set yourself up with expectations that are just going to end up frustrating you, because you see all these things happening based on your desire for them to happen. I got to get this done. But when you run out there and you start getting these no's and not now, how do you process that?
Yeah.
So let's talk about your expectations and what they look like if they're not met. What are your plans for that? But Melvin, long story short, was he bought into the idea of community service, of instead of getting out of prison saying, he got out and bought into the idea of what can I give? And I got a picture of him volunteering at the church, sweeping. And I caught him sweeping, and I took my phone, and I took a picture of it, and I showed it to him. I said, this right here is going to get you everything you want out of life.
Amen.
I said, this is the path and the door to all your expectations. If you keep doing this right here, you're going to get everything you want. And so Melvin went on to get a job at the VA, filed for his benefits, got his benefits, became 100% veteran. And 100% is like $3,000, $4,000 a month, plus he had a job.
Is that like 100% disabled?
Right. Because he was a veteran, so he just started filing.
So he had that plus his income.
Right. Melvin got married. Then Melvin went out and said, Danny, I'm having a house built.
What?
He put me in his truck, took me to a plot, a land, and it had little sticks on them with little flags sticking out. And he said, that's where they're going to build a house. And they said,
Was it a new subdivision or just?
yeah, a new subdivision. And so,
Wow.
and then months and months, he would tell me about the progress. You know, they got the foundation laid and all this. And one day, he invited me to a home welcome. And I went and walked into, and a bunch of us did, from the job
Housewarming.
to his housewarming.
But this, y'all were all the VA.
Right.
People.
And man, I walk in this dude's house. I ain't got a house yet. You know what I'm saying? He done came out years after I done got a Zoom past me.
Well, he had to pay that $60,000 back.
Well, I had my own way to, but I watched this guy, and he did so well. On our brochure, they made him the face of the company
Wow.
to tell his story. And
Listen, Danny is proud of him, but I'm
Yeah.
proud of Danny. Danny lives on the lake now.
Say, hold on now.
That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not gonna go any further. But Danny last year took me, after many years, he took me to where he and his wife bought their house on a lake. He said it's what she wanted. It's not, I could have stayed in smaller, but it's what she wanted, and she's a very successful woman. And so they live.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's not about him. It's not about
That's
him. It's about his
awesome.
wife. But he did.
Kudos to you.
Yeah, but yeah, he took. I'm like, what, Danny? I'm like, dang, I've been a lawyer for 31 years. I don't have anything like this.
That's
Now, Danny
nice.
lives where I wish I lived. Okay, let me just tell you this. But God is good, and He's been faithful. I met Danny through a church program. He works with the formerly incarcerated
Right.
at our church. with
Still
Pastor
to this
Freedom.
day.
Yeah, and it's the church we both go to. So.
And
yeah,
Melvin still works in community service.
Right.
Wow.
He goes into the prison with the Cairo program, religious.
Kairos or something.
Right.
Yeah, I know how to say it.
He's been doing that since he got out.
Yeah.
Because he understands, or he understands what we both believe in. That
And that program teaches you that too.
right,
That program. Isn't that the one at Carol Vance?
right.
Yeah, that's
So he got involved in that program in Carol Vance.
Carol Vance is the name of a prison.
Okay.
Oh, you know, we have hundreds of them in Texas, but Carol Vance is one where
I'm
they
part-
have a lot of these programs.
I'm part of prison ministry at Lighthouse.
Okay.
So the most successful people that I know that were formerly incarcerated to this day still work in community service. So, and they bought into the ideal, that's what opened the door into them getting the things or maintaining it and not going back into criminal thinking, criminal behavior, definitely not back into the criminal justice system. And they all stay in touch with me, Melvin.
That's
and when I have
amazing.
something going on and I need them to come help, insist me to volunteer, just recently we did the Angel Tree Christmas, and
Professor really good at that.
I needed volunteers. So I reached back to these guys and say, hey, come help me give these toys to kids that parents are incarcerated. And so,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Trust me, Danny hits me up.
Yeah.
I think I had to give up a few cards.
Yeah, you did.
A few little
you
gift
did.
cards at the last minute.
Yeah.
I wanted to just go buy a bunch of footballs. We said kids don't want that anymore. They didn't want gift cards. But you know, gift cards can be cheated. You know, they impersonate those gift cards. You know, what do you call them? They
Scammers?
They scammers. They have those scam gift cards.
Oh,
People
wow.
steal them, or I don't know what they do to them, but they're kind of, you know, they can be a problem.
Well, you go into Walmart, you buy a gift card, and you give it to somebody, they tell you it didn't work. So they had a thing with the cashiers, that
Wow.
They're doing
they would
something,
ring it up.
but they're not activating.
They did not activate
They must be
it.
activating on something they have because they're not activating. I got a lot of gift cards for my birthday party, and one of them didn't work.
Really?
One of them
Wow.
didn't work. So something happened. I don't know.
It wasn't the one I gave you because I didn't give you a gift card.
No, it wasn't that one. No, it was to a
My
small.
gift was better than a gift card.
Oh yes. Danny knows I like to drink, so he didn't buy me one drink. He went over the top. He bought me a case. He didn't buy me one bottle. You know, everybody brings your bottle to
Your favorite bottle.
No.
He bought you.
He bought me a case. So he went over the top. He went over the top with it. He brought a case.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah.
You deserve it.
Other people did one bottle, but not Danny. Danny outdid himself. He said, "You see what I brought?" I'm like,
I was so proud of myself.
Listen, me and my daughter's still drinking that case.
I already know. I said every time she popped one of these bottles, she's gonna say, "Let's get one of them old
I
Danny
do it very sparingly, but every now and then when we did a little bit too much that day, I said, well, let's go in the closet and get one, and we still got it in the box. We just take one out every now and then.
Yeah.
Yep, of one of the wines I like. So, anyway, do you want to tell us another story? We have 15 minutes.
Yes, I have to tell you about the person who is the reason why I started my company. So I had a vet who's on my caseload, and we were talking and trying to get him into, well, he was in permanent housing at that point, but we were talking about his future in terms of finding a job and things like that, and maintenance. Well, what I didn't know was, whenever I would do counseling with him, he would call his sister and tell his sister, Miss Simmons taught me this, Miss Simmons did this, Miss Simmons did that, unbeknownst to me. So one day, there's a knock on the door, and it's his sister. And she decides, you've been helping my brother, you're going to help me too. I said, honey, there's something called a HIPAA law. You cannot be here while I'm counseling him. I say, so you can come back or I can talk to you another time. She said, okay, no problem. So she left. But then we ended up meeting, and turns out she was a vet too and had a good job working at the VA, but she was homeless. And she had a cot at her brother's apartment. So I talked with her and I listened to her story, and could see some flags about why she don't have no money. So after I listened to her story, I gave her some things that I thought she could do that would help her. But then we did an exercise. I said, I want you to figure out, so now we know how much money you spend and we know how much you get. So what do you do with what's left over, right? I said, I want you to come up with a budget and tell me how much you can save at the end of the year. And I'm going to come up with a budget. And 10 minutes later, then we're going to compare. She said, okay. So she did her budget. I did my budget. And she was so excited. She said, look, I can save $5,000. I said, oh, that's cool. That's great. And she said, well, how much did you save? I said, 20,000. 20,000. So I showed her. As a matter of fact, I still have the Facebook that I put on Facebook that day. This is the look on your face when you show somebody how to save $20,000 and still have spending money. And I was so excited. And so, long story short, we talked about some things that she could do. I ended up introducing her to a broker, one of my sorority sisters. And 6 months later, she closed on a 4-bedroom house.
So what was the key to the way she was spending and what you taught her? I mean, what was the...
She was throwing away money. She was Santa Claus to everybody. And so she enjoyed it. Some people like to be needed.
Giving.
And some people need to be needed. And so I don't tell people not to give, but I learned this from Oprah. She said, of course, when she started making big money, everybody was hitting up on her. And she couldn't say, I don't have it. But she learned how to set boundaries. And she decided how much she could give. I said, so you can give, but you need to have a limit. Because otherwise, you're going to join them. And somebody's going to have to take care of you. So you need to set some boundaries.
So Oprah said you set boundaries. Like, I'm only going to give this one $500. I'm only going to give... Is that the way she does it?
I don't know how she did, but she said boundaries. And so how I interpret that was, and I do this. So if I make $5,000 a month, I can set a 10%, which will be $500. Or I can say 5%, but I must set a percentage. And once I have given that amount,
you got to wait till you replenish the next month.
You got to wait till next month.
And I'm not going to give one person the whole
right
percentage that I'm willing to give a month.
But I'm willing to give X amount per month because I know what my budget is. I know what I need to pay my expenses. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to give and give and give and then have a deficit myself.
Right.
So I have to use some wisdom and give. But, and I say when the person comes, so after you've given away the $500, the next person you say, you know what, sweetheart, I really wish I could help you. I really do. But I have given all I have. I don't have anything left.
And you taught this young lady how to do that. And
Yeah.
with that, you taught her how to also save for herself.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I do a budget. I do what I call a self-care budget. And self-care budget is, I think a lot of people, you have a budget and you can be ever so good and you can keep the budget. But then one day, if you keep the budget and you keep paying everything and you do nothing for you, one day you're going to blow a gasket and ain't nobody going to get paid.
Can I share a quick story?
Yes.
You know what one of my dreams was once I took that financial freedom class that I wanted to do? I wanted to save $10,000. Like in my mind, that was like saving $1 million.
Right.
My whole
For you,
life,
that is.
Like, right. I had this whole life
Yeah.
of all these experiences and everything, and I said, you know what?
If I just had $10,000 in
No, it was just something that I wanted to achieve in my lifetime.
That's good.
You see the entertainment world and people, and I didn't want anything they had. I wanted to put my finger down and say, you know what? In this lifetime, I live to save $10,000. And when I achieved that mark, I went to the bank, I went to the cashier and asked them, was it a private place that I could take my $10,000 and count it? It's not embellishing it.
No. You took it to the bank, or you had?
No, once it was in there,
it was in the bank.
Yeah.
I want it. Now I want to hold it in my hand.
So you withdrew all the money,
But I told the guy what I wanted to do.
and you're gonna put it back.
I was gonna put it back. I need a private place. He put me in a room.
Where they had the
and
safe
I had my
deposit
money.
box or the safe deposit box.
I had my phone, and I just started throwing the money up and just.
Now they're not gonna let you go in a safe deposit.
So I had the money, and I taped it. I never posted it. I never told anybody. I didn't brag about it.
Just had to get out your system.
Because if you'd have posted it, you'd have gotten jacked.
Well, no. The thing about it is, I understood. I don't want
Fame and glory or attention, yeah.
Right. I don't need to be affirmed by people or use Facebook for likes and clicks. Oh, look, Danny did that. It was a personal thing.
To you.
I didn't tell Stephanie. I didn't tell my daughter. I did that. And once I did that and I put that back in, guess what I ended up doing?
What's that?
I said, man, if I can do 10,
I can do 20.
I said, man, I don't think I'll do the same thing I did. I can do 20. And then I believed I could do 20. Like,
And you
man,
did,
that's
and you
going to be
did.
crazy if I saved $20,000. But the thing about it is, saving can become addictive.
It can be. To where you don't want to touch it even when you need
You
it.
can fall
That's
in
true.
love.
That's
You
true.
can fall in love
With
with
seeing
seeing,
that.
how much you can save.
Yes. My
They have a name
brother's
for
like
that.
that. My
Now,
brother's like
people accuse you, they just try to make you feel bad about being frugal by saying,
yeah.
oh, you so cheap. I would say, well, thank you. That's a compliment. That means I'm taking care of my business. And there's so many different hacks into saving money, but still ball on a budget and live your best life. Because one thing about having a lot of money in savings, there's really nothing, Vivian, you can't do.
That's
that. Right.
So if you're not doing the most, and someone say, well, we're gonna go on a cruise and it's gonna cost $3,500, I'm not blinking about like, dang,
I got the money. I might not want
I
to
got
spend
the
it.
I
but
got the money, but they're gonna, man, you're gonna slow me down on my pace. I'm trying to get to this 20.
Right. Well, he did something because he got a house.
Yeah.
Let me brag on you. Y'all know you don't want me to.
That's
But
good.
he has a beautiful house.
And here's another trick: not knowing when you get paid. It's not a date that you look.
Right.
And it's something I talk to my spouse about. Like, why do you, if you live in the wait till you get paid, that's a flag.
Yeah.
When you get paid, it should have no effect on your life because your savings is so much bigger. It makes that check look so small. When you get like, oh, that's all that is, that's nothing compared to what I have
What you
in
put aside.
savings. So it's just like a drop in the bucket.
Right.
And it's only there to pay the direct deposit bill. You know, whatever,
Right.
you know, it
You know how many
pays
people
out
that
there.
don't have any savings at all and haven't had one in years?
I know a lot, and a lot of them.
I remember I could remember the last time I had a bank account. I remember when that was my story. But I went from that to having like 5 bank accounts. But it was just, but I can remember when I didn't. And so you don't think like that. But I'll tell you another trick I did. Back in the day when I worked at AT&T, when they would give you systematic raises like every 6 months or whatever, I would fill out the paperwork and have an automatic payroll deduction, and I would save my raise before I got it. So I never saw it. So I wouldn't miss it. So if I get a $30 raise or a $50 raise or whatever it is, and I'm used to what I'm making, I'm not used to whatever this new income is. So I would save my raise before I got it. And that way I was never.
I'll give you another thing. So this would make my year mark at the VA, right? So there's an incentive to that, right? That I reached that mark. But a month before I reached that mark, whatever that was going to be, I put it into my retirement
right.
and increased my.
That's right.
So when I looked at my check, I didn't get the increase like everybody else.
Yeah,
I
that was
did,
smart.
but it went
That was
to
so
my
smart.
retirement.
That was
But
so
I was like,
smart.
I was living off this anyway. You hurt my feelings.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And now I'm putting more aside.
You gave me, that money you gave me only allowed me to invest it. Not to spend it, but to invest it.
I bet you be driving your wife crazy with your
No, she bought
good
into
investment.
it. No, she bought into it.
Yeah, she did buy into it.
That's good.
We were almost
took a while.
13 years in.
Yeah, it took a while. It takes a while for us women sometimes to, to be more frugal.
I wish somebody had,
If you have a man that's a leader like that,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
wish
it could lead a lot of women, but not many men are like that. A lot of
Yeah.
men have their vices. They might not spend on the same thing the women do, but they still spend. So, I mean, I admire Danny for being, a
That's
real leader
amazing.
in his household because a lot of women need that advice. A
do.
lot of women who make a lot of money spend a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Amazon.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
I know all the
Oh my
drivers.
God.
I know all the drivers by their first name.
Oh, I wonder why. But yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. And these younger people are addicted to it.
Oh,
My
listen.
daughter has everything. I get the packages delivered to my house, my office, and they come in. She's gonna get at least 1 package a week, if not 2. Yeah, they're addicted.
And if you add, what I try to get, it's not that you're spending a lot of money on that purchase. It's you're not looking at it. It accumulates over time. Do that this month and do it for the year and then see what you spent that year.
Ooh.
And then watch what you do when you have a new house too. For you, since you have a relatively new house, is stuff starting to just stack up and be junk? 'Cause,
Hoarders.
You know, hoarders.
Be
Are
hoarding.
you using it? If you're not using it, give it away, get rid of it, or take it back or whatever. But a
Sing
lot of
my
people,
song.
a lot of people have stuff all in their garages. My garages have always been where I park my cars.
Yeah.
You know, I have
Yeah.
storage on the side, but 2 cars can fit in that 2-car garage. You know, if you got that much stuff, you need to take it to the Star of Hope. You need to take it to Goodwill if it's furniture you're not using.
That's true.
You know,
Let it go.
People don't let it go. Give people those clothes. You haven't been wearing it. You don't need
Yeah.
it. So let it go. We have 2 minutes, so let's start wrapping this conversation up about from homeless to learning how to manage your money. Because a lot of people that are homeless will, not start off making much money, but you got to know how to put that money. So, Rosalind, thank you for sharing your story and those of the people you've helped. And just kind of, if you can kind of think of like a 1 minute or something you just want to say, and Danny, you'll go next.
I want people to know, no matter what situation they're in and how bad it is, that there's never too late to change your life. You can turn it around. You could be 50, 60. It's not too late. You need information and you need determination.
That's
But
true.
one day I decided I'm not going out like this. It's over. I'm not going out like this. And that's the day I decided, Roz, you getting ready to change.
Do you have a plan now in your mind that you'll never be homeless again?
Oh, absolutely. I'll never be homeless and I'll never be broke. But I've never handled money the same anymore because I discovered that money is either a tool to change your life or it's a weapon against you. And it depends on how you use it.
Amen. 1 minute, my brother.
It's only 2 traumas that almost broke me. One, when I was in Korea and it was real, real cold and they had me out
Korea?
there. Korea, when I was in the military. Freeze. I can't deal with cold.
Okay.
The other one, I experienced homelessness. And I tell people,
It almost
though
broke
I
me
spent
too.
15 years in prison and dealt with substance abuse at the lowest level, nothing traumatized me more than when I was homeless. And I came from a family with aunties, uncles, cousins. And I get this scenario where I make it up. Like I'll go to my aunt's house and she has a dog and the dog is in the window. And I'm like, how y'all let him in and won't let me in?
Because you're a dope fiend.
And somebody open the door and say, cause when we leave and go to the grocery store and come back, everything's still here.
If you go, if
put
we
you
leave
in-
you here, everything will be gone.
We can't trust you like we trust this dog. And so I just want to tell you that I see what God has turned your wounds into wisdom and purpose. And we appreciate you coming and sharing that with us tonight.
Thank you.
And I second that. It's a beautiful story. I met her at church, just like I
Yeah.
met you in church. I met her at church while I'm on the campaign trail, and she came up to me and said, I want to do things for the homeless. And so I said, well, we have stories that we tell where we can get your story out and your God-driven purpose so that people can contact you about your literacy program. And I hope this show is an opportunity for you to get your message out. Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Don't forget to like me on YouTube and click us and watch our stories. I have about 250 amazing stories of redemption, and we welcome your attention. Thank you and good night.